Look, sometimes you get an award season where you can just tell that one movie is going to win everything. Last year, that movie was Oppenheimer. This year, it is an entirely unpredictable awards race. The Golden Globes kicked it off last night. Today, highlights of the Golden Globes and where the awards season goes from here. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, we are 6 days into 2025. We are already in the swing of things when it comes to award season, and the first big award show of the season happened last night. Have a listen.
You can maybe put us in jail. You can beat us up, but you never can take away our soul, our existence, our identity. I am who I am. Know who you want. Thank you so much.
That is actor Carlos Sofia Gascon accepting the award for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy for Emilia Perez last night at the Golden Globes. Look, it's a Netflix musical. It's about a transgender cartel boss who transitions into a woman, and that movie took home 4 awards last night. The win kicked off what is expected to be a pretty unpredictable awards race, ending, of course, with the Oscars in March. Teri Hart is here, Aramide Tinubu is here, and they're here to talk about all things Golden Globes. Aramide, Teri, welcome to the show, y'all.
Thanks so much for having us.
Hello. I'm delighted you guys are here. Listen, let's get into what happened last night. Teri, this was your highlight of the night.
And I'll just leave you with one thing that I think this movie is imparting is in those moments when we don't think we're smart enough or pretty enough or skinny enough or successful enough or basically just not enough. I had a woman say to me, just know you will never be enough. But you can know the value of your worth if you just put down the measuring stick. And so today, I celebrate this as a marker of my wholeness and of the love that is driving me and for the gift of doing something I love and being reminded that I do belong. Thank you so much.
Listen, we played so much of that speech because it is the speech of the night, I think, very easily. Demi Moore accepting the Golden Globe for Best Female Actor in a Musical or Comedy. The movie is the substance. It is under the comedy category. I did not laugh once during the substance because it is horrifying. Teri, why did this moment from Demi Moore stick with you?
Well, I laughed a lot during the substance.
Okay,
so
I laughed
that's the difference between you and
I laughed a little. Yes.
But that speech, it gets me. I didn't sleep enough last night, and to hear that again so soon, my goodness, it really does get me. She's really laying bare how she's been treated, and I think a lot of women are treated, not only in Hollywood, but in all facets of the world. You know, earlier in the speech, she said that somebody called her a popcorn actress, and what that meant was that she could make money for other people. She could make movies that made a lot of money, but she would never be rewarded for this. And this is Demi Moore, man. She's been famous my entire life. She was kind of like my white whale in terms of the person that I never had a chance to interview, and I don't know if I ever will, but my goodness. And I think that to hear her recognize those things and to hear her say that one thing was said to her and it corroded her, that was the language she used, it corroded her, I think it was really relatable. I think a lot of us can relate to that idea of one thing being said to us that then kind of occupies space, as they say, rent-free in our heads and holds us back. And this was a real redemption moment for Demi Moore. She's never been given an award in her entire career. Yeah. So it's kind of a beautiful Hollywood moment that is wrapped up in a lot of ugliness. And I love when a moment like that kind of mirrors the movie that is being talked about as well. Yeah. That's kind of a real poetic justice there. So yeah, I will listen to that speech more than once going forward in life, just to remind myself.
And just to say, timelines matter. The fact that she said that producer told her that producer told her that 30 years ago. Demi Moore is in her early 60s now, and to finally be arriving at a moment where she's like, you know what? I can be more than a popcorn actress. I can do a work that sticks with people, that gets awarded, that gets Oscar conversations, and she's a serious, contender in the Oscar conversations. It feels like a really beautiful kind of not even just a third act, just a new act in her career, maybe one that she did not necessarily expect, Teri.
And I couldn't help but notice Nicole Kidman sitting right there. Nicole Kidman is only 5 years younger than Demi Moore, and their trajectories have just been so fundamentally different. I don't know if Nicole Kidman is that much better or whatever of an actress, but for some reasons they were placed in different boxes. And I think that that is what needs to be looked at, is the boxes that Hollywood and many other places in the world put women and other people too. We're so reticent to imagine that people can be something other than one thing. And I think that that's what that speech was to me.
Aramide, I want to go to your moment. You were very pleased to see this happen last night.
And of course, I want to dedicate it to my mother. You have no idea, she was here 25 years ago. And this is like a proof that art can endure.
So Fernanda Torres accepting the award for Best Female Actor in a Drama. The movie is I'm Still Here. It's a Brazilian movie. Aramide, we just heard Fernanda dedicate this award to her mom. Do you want to talk a little bit about the significance of that moment, the idea that her mom was there 25 years earlier, just on a personal level for Fernanda, but also for the Golden Globes?
For sure. So first of all, she's the first Brazilian woman to ever win in this category. And her mother was actually nominated in the same category back in 1999, as she said during her quick speech. I think she was just as stunned as everyone. The awards were kind of wrapping up, and for her to win, it was really a shocker.
Heavyweight category, right? Like Angelina Jolie, like a heavyweight category. Yeah.
Her performance in I'm Still Here is absolutely outstanding. And ironically, her mother also portrays the older version of her character in the film. So it was a really beautiful full circle moment. And I think it really shifted the Oscars race. It sort of came out of nowhere. She wasn't even prepared. You can tell she was just really stunned, but it was so well deserved and so beautiful. And I love moments like this because though the Globes were fun, it was really kind of hitting all of the traditional beats that we're so used to. And the winners we all expect to win, like Jeremy Allen White, didn't even bother to show up to collect yet another award. But when something like this happens, it sort of shows that, oh, we're actually thinking something a little bit different might happen. So I thought it was such a fun moment and such a beautiful and inspiring moment for her mother and for her.
The thing that you just said is really important. Also, the idea that this shifts how people think about the awards race. That's important because like we are in the middle of the season, and there's like, you know, there's bigger and bigger awards as you sort of like get later into the season. Also, I got to say, this year hosting honors fell to this comedian.
Good evening and welcome to the 82nd Golden Globes, Ozempic's biggest night. If you're watching on CBS, hello. If you're watching on Paramount Plus, you have 6 days left to cancel your free trial.
That is Nikki Glaser hosting last night's Golden Globes. Teri, I gotta say, the Golden Globes desperately needed a shakeup. Last year, I was the comedian Joe Coy, and it did not go well for Joe Coy. And we don't talk about Joe Coy anymore, which is why you guys are making that face. Talk to me about Nikki Glaser as a choice. Was it the right choice to bring in someone like Nikki for that role?
Yes, I think she was actually perfect. I didn't know a lot about Nikki Glaser going into last night, so I had like no expectations. I was really a blank slate, which lucky me, right? Because I was blown away with her. I thought that she struck the perfect tone. I know that people love the Ricky Gervais, you know, poking fun at people, and Nikki Glaser did a bit of that, but she did it with people who weren't in the room. Like she, you know, fired at the Joker Part 2, and you know they obviously weren't.
They were not there. They were not nominated. Yeah.
She, you know, there was a joke at Ben Affleck's expense. He wasn't in the room, so people, there's not that awkwardness when somebody sitting beside you or two tables away has just been kind of embarrassed when they're sitting there in a ball gown. Like, I mean, it adds insult to injury, I think, when you're like super fancy and then somebody's also telling you about yourself. So I just think that she I thought she did a really good job. You're Going to Be Popular was really funny.
Yeah.
And for me, kind of
a joke to bring in Wicked and Conclave, sort of a combination of the two of them. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, she had a Pope hat on. I'm sure they're called something other than a Pope hat. I just don't know.
Good enough for me, pal. Yes.
I think it's a mitre, I think, or something like that.
Aramide with the Jeopardy level knowledge. Let's go.
Google it.
Okay, all
last
right.
night when I was
Okay,
watching.
all right, all right, all right.
Impressive. So she had a miter on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want the whole song. And then she had this ratings board about like who was winning and who was being thanked. It really made me laugh. And I just think she set the tone for what we want as a host, which I think post-pandemic, a lot of these award shows have been trying to figure out what this tone is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it irreverent? Is it reverent? Is it,
Self-serious, is it? Right.
Yeah, all those things. And I thought Nikki Glaser just, it came right up in the middle somewhere and worked. And she looked like she was having a great time.
She did. I honestly, I had a great time watching her. I think like she landed all her jokes in that room, felt very receptive to the jokes that she was showing up with. Aramide, the big story I think going into this year's Golden Globes is that there was no real specific story, right? There's no like Oppenheimer level that is like, this is the movie that's going to crush the rest of the field. And it continues to be this really wide open field, right? So like we saw The Brutalist, it won for Best Motion Picture Drama. Then you see Netflix's Emilia Perez win for Best Motion Picture Musical or Comedy. How are you feeling about these choices and what they maybe signify for the rest of the award season?
I really liked it, actually. Like I said, a lot of these ones, The Brutalist specifically, Adrian Brody and Emilia Perez, sort of gobbling up all of these awards sort of alongside their TV counterpart Shogun, I thought was really fabulous because I just didn't see it coming. And I think it shows like we're kind of looking at a very different Oscar race than perhaps what we thought. Someone joked and said this is Adrian's second time sort of portraying a Holocaust
That was
survivor.
Nikki Glaser's opening monologue. She said,
she was
welcoming two-time Holocaust survivor Adrian Brody, and the room
again, a
loved
fabulous
that joke.
host. She was absolutely fabulous. But I just really loved it because it wasn't so cut and dry. It mixed things up and it kept things sort of mysterious. So we don't really know what's going to come in March. And I think that's sort of the beauty of what Globes is supposed to be. It's supposed to be chaotic and fun and glittery and full of alcohol, and just we're getting back into it after the holiday season. So it really showcased that people are actually looking at these films versus, obviously Wicked is fabulous, but I thought Wicked would take home a lot more awards.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily do that. So it just really shifts. And it shows the difference between like what audiences are watching and what actual members of academies and critics and things are watching. So I really kind of like that division. It's sort of making me rethink things a little bit.
One thing I was interested in, Teri, is the speech that Brady Corbet gave when he won Best Picture for The Brutalist. He's the director of The Brutalist. And The Brutalist, he sort of gave this long speech about being like, I was told that this is an undistributable movie because it's 3.5 hours, and it's really important that we just like let filmmakers explore the things that they want to explore and sort of push the boundaries that they want to push. Do you think, just very quickly, do you think that The Brutalist and its incredibly long runtime, think that's going to be a hindrance in terms of, its success at the Oscars? Because it is kind of billed as an Oscar favorite, but I'm just not sure that many people are going to show up for 3 hours and 35 minutes.
I think they will now. I think that this does change things. I think that people will pay attention to Brady Corbet and what he's done. I think they're doing a great job in the lead up to the Oscar nominations when voters are voting. There was a big thing in the New York Times about him this weekend. And I think that all of that matters. I also think he was really, really good last night. I tend to not like speeches read off phones.
Yeah.
But when he won for Best Director, I thought that he was really great. And then him kind of extrapolating on, art is a film is the director's medium, and let us do what we want to do. And it's worth noting that The Brutalist had a really, really low budget. It was like $10 or $12 million or something. It was a very, very inexpensive movie made, although an incredibly long running time. So, and it's worth seeing. It really is. It is a movie that is unlike most movie experiences that you're going to have. And isn't that a thrill in 2025 now to still have something new?
And I'll tell you this, once I am able to clear an entire evening to go see The Brutalist, I will then go and do that. In the meantime, I got to say...
I feel like they should let you go one day and then another day. I feel like you should be able to spread your ticket out over 2 days.
100%. I totally agree with you. Okay, we got to wrap it up on the Golden Globes here. Thank you both for staying up for us so late. Aramide Tinubu is a television critic for Variety. Teri Hart, entertainment reporter for Super Channel. Aramide, we're going to say goodbye to you right now. Thank you so much for being here, friend. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, all.
Yes, of course. Teri, you're sticking around, buddy, because we got to talk about another story that's kind of like rocked the entertainment industry for the past few weeks, and that is this controversy surrounding the movie It Ends With Us. It's a movie based on a Colleen Hoover book. It came out last summer. It made like $350 million at the box office. So it's reasonable to say it was a hit. It stars Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni. Justin Baldoni is also the director of that movie. And in recent weeks, we've kind of seen the story about this movie change. The movie has become the center of this nasty, very public legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And just a heads up, like some of the story does deal with allegations of sexual harassment. Teri, are you ready to get into it? Shall we do this?
Let's do it.
It's an uncomfortable story, man. It really does. Okay, it feels like there's been a black cloud hanging over the movie ever since it was even made. Do you want to just give us a brief snapshot of like how this saga got here?
Yeah, because it's dense, right?
Yeah.
There's so much going on with how we got to where we are. So the controversy for fans started even before production started. They didn't like the casting of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. They thought they were both too old to play these lead characters that are beloved by Colleen Hoover fans.
Yeah.
Cut to production of the movie. It was halted because of the writer's strike. So when they went back to production after the writer's strike ended, Blake Lively approached Wayfarer Studios, which is the production studio that is owned by Justin Baldoni, as you said, Blake's co-star, and the director of the movie, and two other principals who are also named in these lawsuits. And she went back to them and she said, I need some help here. I don't feel safe on set. She produced, went to them with an addendum to her contract where she was asking for an on-set intimacy coordinator, an external producer, which is an interesting ask. Basically, Wayfarer met her requirements, although they did say that they had a different perspective on what was happening on set, but they did want the set to feel safe for her. So that takes us through production. They come back from the writer's strike. They finish the movie. By all accounts, it seems Blake was happier with what was happening on set at that point.
Then the movie comes out.
Even before the movie comes out.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Remember, I warned you, it's dense.
I know, we have a lot to fit in, but we don't have a lot of time. So yes. Sorry.
Even before the movie comes out, Blake Lively isn't happy with Justin Baldoni's cut of the movie. She brings in her own editor, her own composer, adds a Taylor Swift song. Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are besties.
Close friends, yeah.
And Sony Pictures, who's the distributor of the movie, they go with Blake Lively's cut of the movie, and she gets a producer credit, and it's her final cut that ends up in theaters.
Which is unheard of. Like the idea that Justin Baldoni is the director of this movie, but then the star is like, okay, I'm gonna do my own cut. I'm gonna commission my own cut of this movie, and that's the cut that you end up seeing. That's unheard of, right? Like we're already kind of in unheard of territory.
Yeah, so we have safety issues on set for Blake Lively, and then we have massive creative differences. So we've got a lot going on, no love lost at this point between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
But then we get to late December. The New York Times reports that Blake Lively had filed this legal complaint with the California Civil Rights Department against Justin Baldoni and his production company and his public relations team. We get some texts that end up, leaking in this exchange. What is she accusing them of exactly here?
Okay, so it's really important that this did start off as a civil rights complaint, and she's alleging sexual harassment and accusing him of launching an online smear campaign. So the sexual harassment allegations range from Justin and the producers going into her trailer unannounced while she was breastfeeding and having body makeup removed, to Justin adding a sex scene that she didn't approve of, to him improvising a kissing scene, to them talking about their sex lives with her and asking about her sex life. Really, really ugly, nasty stuff. And then as far as the smear campaign goes, this is when things get very ugly and very nasty. You mentioned some of the texts, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think, Elamin, but Blake actually hired a company to do a forensic report of her name on the internet. And the report came to the conclusion that she was the subject of a targeted multi-channel online attack. And you can actually do that these days by affecting algorithms, right? By hiring people to retweet, comment. There was a story that the PR representative that was hired by Baldoni was, planted a story with the Daily Mail, and the subject line was, is Blake Lively about to be canceled? That PR representative, by the way, also worked with Johnny Depp in his very high-profile case with Amber Heard. And so all these... Oh, and it's really important to note that all these text exchanges, they were acquired by Blake Lively's legal team through a subpoena. So these all came to her through legal channels, and they are ugly.
It's very unheard of in the entertainment industry in general for texts like these to leak out. So I just want to just note that, like, the PR team, the messages that were reported in the New York Times, like, this is the PR team that is allegedly talking about, like, how they're going to very intentionally drag Blake Lively's name through the mud. I know that you have, like, this deep knowledge of how Hollywood works, and it just must feel like shocking to see messages like those actually out in the open, because we kind of know this stuff happens. We rarely get, like, direct proof of it. Do you want to talk about your reaction to that, but also maybe squeeze in Justin Baldoni's response to all this, because it's not like he's been silent after those messages appeared in the New York Times.
So, yeah, I mean, reading the texts are really, really chilling. They are very explicitly say, we can bury anybody. They explicitly are talking about, how specifically they're going to go after Blake Lively. And as you said, Elamin, like, yeah, we know that things like this happen, but I think reading them in black and white is a different reaction. And they are really explicit on how much they want to damage her personally and professionally. Baldoni... well, he's ultimately elevated this because he's come to the table after Blake Lively filed the civil rights complaint, He's come to the table suing the New York Times, which is who broke this story, December 21st, Megan Twohey, who also broke the Harvey Weinstein story.
That's right.
And he's suing them for $250 million for breach of contract and libel, and alleging that they conspired with Lively's team to advance an unverified and self-serving narrative. So, as I said, that's set at $250 million, and he filed that in the LA Superior Court, and that meant that Blake Lively then escalated her civil rights complaint to a lawsuit.
So we're giving a lot of hedging here. We're giving a lot of sort of like legal descriptors, and it's because, like, this is literally playing out in the courts, and it's not the kind of story that we've seen in a little while, and it's not the level of public attention on this has been quite fascinating to me. I would say, it has been several years since Megan Twohey broke those stories about Harvey Weinstein and kicked off the Me Too movement. That was 2017. That was a while ago. And it ended up giving us a greater public language, greater awareness about the pervasiveness of sexual harassment in Hollywood. And then you get these allegations that are from Blake Lively that are before the courts now. Do you see this lawsuit as being in conversation with the initial launch of the Me Too movement? Or do you see this as something maybe a little bit separate?
I think it is in the same bucket. And I think what we're seeing is people like Kate Beckinsale, Abigail Breslin both come out and have their own stories of their own history of abuse and terrible things that have happened to them in Hollywood. And I think it is a recognition that this is still happening, and it's happening to people. It's not just a power imbalance, because there's no doubt going into this, Blake Lively had way more power than who is Justin Baldoni. And this still happened to Blake Lively, allegedly. So, yeah, I think that I don't know if we're going to see kind of a Me Too 2.0. I think a lot of women who came out and did speak about their own experiences had a lot of really unpleasant consequences from doing that. And I think that maybe a lot of people have looked at that and said, I don't know, is this really worth it? And that pendulum swings, right? Like Malcolm Gladwell taught us, the pendulum swings from one side of support and we are in this with you to back to the other, kind of opposite side. And I think we're in the opposite side right now towards women and towards Me Too and towards what happens. And it'll be interesting to see what consequence this has for Justin Baldoni, which already we've seen some consequences. He's been dropped by his agency. But also if we see more and more stories from women, because what we know is that this is happening, and it is happening in pervasive and horrible ways.
I think the advancement of the story is also like it's given us a new tool, which is the idea that someone like Blake Lively can get those texts and put them out in the open and in public. That is a new evolution of how these stories sort of play out. I'm curious to see where the story goes. Teri Hart, I appreciate your time, friend. Thank you so much for being here. We'll keep following the story. Thanks again.
Thanks, Elamin.
Yes, of course. Teri Hart is an entertainment reporter for Super Channel in Toronto. We are going to be keeping a close eye on how the story unfolds. For the latest, go to cbcnews.ca. In the meantime, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow.